Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and in this video we're going to be covering a top 25 solo games from 2019 voted on by the Rolling Solo Facebook community. That's right, for the first time in any of the prior years we've been doing a top 10 video for the end of the year. This time I want to switch it around, and what I did was I posted a poll inside my Rolling Solo Facebook community, and there all of the individuals as part of that community voted on their favorite solo games in order to comprise this list. Got a ton of entries into the list in terms of the number of board games in there, almost close to about 40 or 50 games. But at the end of the day, I wanted to cut the list down to 25, voted on by the most popular, of course. Now, what's also exciting about this is the fact that it also happens to be around the same time that the channel is cresting over the 20,000 subscriber mark, which you can see on screen there is pretty ridiculous. I don't know how many of you have been around since the very beginning, but I'm sure there's a number of you that remember when this thing started off, and where we are currently is a lot further ahead than where we were when things started. But honestly, at the end of the day, I would not be in a position to be able to do this and be able to be successful at this if it wasn't for you guys, which is the reason why I want your voice to be just as heard as mine is through the channel, which is why this video is going to be dedicated to your voting and your favorites, the community here at Rolling Solo. So it should be exciting to see the top 25 solo games from 2019 from the Rolling Solo community perspective, and that's my big thank you back to you guys. And in the future, I hope to do more of these community-based voting polls for top 10s or top X videos, because it really would be cool to compare your selections versus mine. Now, every year in the past, I've always done a top 10 solo games for the year. I'll still be doing my own list, but that usually releases around the end of December, allowing me to play as many games from this year as humanly possible, as much as one person can possibly do, in order to put my top 10 list together. But either way, when that list lands, as well as comparing it to this one, you'll have a good indication of where the community sits versus where I sit on the games that are at the top of the list. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for your support. Let's kick off the top 25. So at number 25, we have Escape Plan from 2019. This one, again, released actually in 2019. And what's really crazy about this one is I've never seen, heard, or played this one. I don't know why. It totally skipped my radar. I think I might have heard something about Ian O'Toole for sure being a part of the artistry of this one, as it says here on Board Game Geek, but this one just totally went right past my radar, so I'm actually not familiar about this one. But thanks to you guys and all the voting that occurred through the Facebook group, I now know a game of which I want to check out, even based here inside the results for the player counts. Solo is very, very much recommended, very highly recommended. It's best played at 4 players apparently, but solo is very highly recommended, so I definitely want to check this out. And as you can see here, because I'm not familiar with the game, I'll show you a couple pictures of what it actually looks like from Board Game Geek. Another thing I want to make a special little note is, again, if you want to support Board Game Geek, I highly recommend it. I'm going to be doing it myself here, but they have their drive that they do every single year. Definitely do this if you find Board Game Geek to be a great resource for you. I do, so I'm absolutely going to be supporting them. But besides that fact, we've got a whole bunch of other little pictures here of this, and literally, I've never seen this game before. I don't know how this jumped past me, but I'm not going to spend too much more time on it because I don't know how it plays. But the fact you guys put it on the list in 25th position means it's got to be something special, and it's something I need to check out. Coming in at number 24 is Vindication, and again, you might be wondering, this one came out in 2018, why is this on the list? Well, if you take a look at the expansions here, you'll see that there were a whole bunch of things that were released in 2019, and leaders and alliances. are what is pinpointed for 2019. So there are going to be cases where there's expansions that have actually caused the core game to actually be in the list as well, because this was more of a fun list of games that people were excited about. Remember that. So what we got here is Vindication. What I can tell you about the game is I haven't received it yet from the Kickstarter. I'm actually still waiting for it. It had some trouble actually getting to me, and I'm still awaiting its arrival. So this is another one that I've been actually dying to get my hands on to try, because I've heard so much about it, but I haven't actually played it myself. So it's good to see this on the list from your guys' standpoint. It obviously shows that you guys are playing it and enjoying it, and I can't wait to actually try it out myself. Checking out this list right here, you can see there's only a single person that's mentioned that this actual expansion is great for solo play. But if I head back to the original Vindication, take a look at the community here, it's actually kind of surprising because solo is just not really recommended at all here. So I believe, and again, because I haven't actually received it in quite a bit, maybe Leaders and Alliances is the one that actually pushes solo to the top of the fray. Yeah, so solo 1 to 5, whereas the original one was 2 to 5. So that's the reason right there. Again, I'm not familiar with this game because I'm still waiting the whole thing to show up. Can't wait for it, and thanks for putting it on the list because at least I know it's good. In the 23rd position, we have Hexploor at the Forests of Adramon, and this one did release in 2019, and there's actually quite a few iterations of Hexploor it. The Valley of the Dead King was the original one, and I actually went ahead and did the Sands of Shirax, which was a Kickstarter preview during this year. So I do have videos for the original Valley of the Dead King. I have videos, playthrough for that, plus I have the Kickstarter preview for Sands of Shirax. I highly recommend this one, and definitely the community loves this game. This truly is, as I've mentioned in the past, an RPG in a box. This literally is as close as you're going to get to having an RPG feel in a board game. And there's a lot of times where people use that terminology to apply it to a board game, but truly, if you love role-playing games and you want that same vibe, this is going to give it to you. In the 22nd position is Hellboy the board game. This came out in 2019. This actually comes from Mantic Games, and surprisingly really took off in the solo world, because I heard a lot about this thing when it actually landed. People said it was really well designed and it was very interesting. Now again, you're going to want to actually have a connection to the Hellboy universe. You're going to want to have a love and appreciation for it for you to really get the most out of this, because it's tied to that. Again, it's very similar to like something like Marvel Champions. If you're not into superheroes, you're not into Marvel, it's going to be a tough sell. The mechanics are great, but you got to have that theme tie-in as well. It doesn't look like it's overly heavy weighted, so you're not going to have an issue learning it. And in terms of solo recommendations, the people that have gone ahead and voted here have actually said that it's recommended to be played solo, and it says it's an experience you can have right out of the core box. For me personally, I don't have this game yet, but it's certainly on the list of games I'd like to try. In the 21st position is Dungeon Alliance Champions, which landed in 2019. Very high on the rating scale there. It says it's the first expansion for Dungeon Alliance deck building miniatures adventure game. It adds new heroes and upgrades, deck of many treasures, hero selection tokens, deep dungeon, final enemy room cards, Titan room. And from what I've heard in the solo community, and I've recently unboxed Dungeon Alliance on the channel myself, so I haven't actually got this one to the channel yet in terms of an actual playthrough, but I've heard good things about it in terms of it having a very Mage Knight-like puzzle kind of feel to it, where you really have to grind your way through mentally as it's a puzzle to try to succeed. And so it's going to basically appeal to individuals that like a Mage Knight-like experience, but if you're not into a brain-burny game, this may not appeal to you. So that's kind of the pro and con of this particular one. Overall, though, this is just an expansion. If you head back to the original Dungeon Alliance, this came out in 2018, and it is actually recommended, probably due to its complexity and weight and that brain burn experience, that it's best played at one, and I probably agree with that from what I've seen and heard, but I need to play this myself to actually come to that conclusion. It is really good to see the expansion is actually even higher rated than the base game itself. It means it added quite a bit, and people seem to be pleased with it. In the 20th position is Tiny Towns. This got a 7.5 on Board Game Geek, 72 rank for family, and overall 440. This honestly kind of came as a shock to me. I didn't expect this one to be as good as it was. I do have this game myself, and I did an unboxing on the channel. However, I never got around to doing a playthrough on the channel, but I did play this one myself. Really enjoyed this one. So if you're looking for one that you're able to wrap your head around at low weight, in other words, complexity-wise, it's not going to take you long to comprehend, but it has really, really cool abstract strategy, as you can see down here, and that's exactly how I would pen this thing, as you're trying to basically fill out this area right here in the most strategic way possible without getting into the details. This is a really, really, really good one to dive into, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend you do so. Obviously, it deserves a spot on this list, and it came in at the 20th position. The next game in the list, in the 19th position, is Brook City from 2019. This comes from Blacklist Games. This game right here, if we check out for player count, is recommended at solo play. Of course, you can play it with other people as well because it's cooperative, but this game, if you're trying to figure out what it's all about, it's essentially GTA. That's basically the vibe you're getting, except you're on the side of the cops, as you're going to be going around trying to stop criminals in action using this whole system that they've built out through Street Masters, the modular deck system. This carries over into Brook City from Street Masters and is also in some subsequent games as well from them. This adds a lot of replayability to their games, which is a huge plus, and there's a lot of content for this thing. So if you got the Kickstarter boxes or you're going after the extra content, there's a lot there to add variation to the game. There's also really, really good dividers and organizational systems in these things that they do a great job of that not so many other people do. In the 18th position, we have Cthulhu Death May Die with an average score of 7.9 on Board Game Geek. In terms of solo play, it's very much recommended to play this game in a solo capacity. It's about average weight, but I would say this is definitely easy to get into. It's a 20-page rulebook or even less. Most of the rules are intuitive. You don't really have to kind of dive in too deep to figure out the gameplay, which just makes it fun because the actual gameplay itself is fun. There's not a lot of rules that you have to dig through, and the structure of the game with the Elder God that you get to pair randomly or chosen with an episode randomly or chosen in order or out of order, one shot or campaign, makes it so awesome because you can play this as a one-shot and be done, or you can actually go and start doing a structured 6-episode campaign or 5-episode campaign, whatever you want to do. And I love that. And again, if you replay the same episode in the future, you choose a different Elder God, and bam, the cards change, the tokens change, everything changes. It just makes that replayability factor even higher, which means you can show the game to other people. And even though you're playing a similar episode, you understand the Elder one is going to throw curveballs into that thing that you're not going to expect. So in terms of recommendation, highly recommend this one. Really enjoying it currently. In the 17th position, we have Senna Watch. You guys remember this one. We actually did a Kickstarter preview for this game on the channel. I absolutely love this game. This is a great game to honestly bring camping. That's exactly what I did with this one when I first received it from the Kickstarter. It's compact. I was able to get it out to the table very easily, and it actually has a lot going for it in terms of its gameplay, and there's a lot of good decisions to be made as you're trying to essentially keep a fire burning bright so that you can see far enough in the distance to have a shot at actually winning, because the more your flame goes out, the higher the chances that your monsters are going to overwhelm you that are in this row of cards. And so you're using all the game mechanics to kind of flip the cards to see them in advance and rest some of your party at the camp sometimes and not rest them at other times. It's a really good game with lots of great decisions. It's not super heavy complexity wise, but for solo play, this thing is labeled as the best way to play. At position 16, we have Cartographers, a role-player tale. I've actually no familiarity whatsoever with this one. I think I've heard of it a couple times, but I actually don't know much about it. This one I have not played. But thanks to you guys and putting this list together, now I'm intrigued and I want to find out more about what this game is all about. It certainly looks interesting to me. It's also very interesting the fact that it's listed from 1 to 100 players. This is again ringing a bell because I remember somebody mentioning the insane player count that was listed here on Board Game Geek, but I believe it's actually accurate. The weight is not very heavy, it looks like, and I'm very excited to see how this works, but it has a lot of paper and pencil line drawing. As you can see right here, you're going to be actually plotting things out as you go through. So very interesting to check this, or interested to check this one out, but I have no idea what to expect. So thanks to you guys, I'll be digging in a little further. Coming in at 15, we have a much more complex game here than what we've seen in prior entries. This is Paladins of the West Kingdom, and this is absolutely a game that I cannot wait to dive into. I actually recently received this one about a week or two back, and haven't gotten around to unboxing this one yet or playing it, but I'm thoroughly excited to do so. This has hand management, worker placement, and it has a medieval theme, of course. It's a strategy game, and it even labels itself in here as being a recommended way to play. Very much like Raiders of the North Sea, this is one that I cannot wait to dive into further, so I'm not surprised in the least that it landed on the list from the community. In the 14th position, we have Deep Madness, a game that originally came out in 2018, but the second printing, as I mentioned, can be actually a part of this particular list because there are new entries for the game itself in the expansions. Here you can see that there's epic monsters that came out and a bunch of other crazy stuff for this game. It just keeps getting larger and larger. There's actually even a storage solution to house all the insane amounts of monsters and miniatures and game components. But this is a game that I have covered on the channel in terms of an unboxing and a full playthrough and showcase. So if you're interested in this one, definitely check that out. I really like the strategy in this particular adventure horror miniatures board game. It's really well designed. The scenarios are very, very unique, and they use the tiles and the tokens and mechanisms within the game to really, really add another layer to kind of the dungeon crawl experience. In position number 13 on the list is Tapestry from Stonemaier Games. You can see right here that the community recommends this one at solo play. There's quite a bit of voting going on behind these numbers. You've got the weight here above average for its complexity rating. You can expect to find strategy. It's a civ building game. There's hand management, tech trees, tile placement, track movement, and variable player powers. You can see solitaire games listed right there as well. I'll show you a couple pictures of the components because I did do an unboxing on the channel, so you can go check that out if you want to see closer up on all the components. They're extremely high quality. I was really impressed by them, and this is one that I haven't done a playthrough yet on the channel, but I'm really interested in doing so. So if you're into civ building games, this is the one from this year that you should check out. Coming in at number 12 is Aeon's End Legacy from Indie Board and Cards. I mean, it wouldn't be a list without Aeon's End being involved, right? Anytime there's a new release for this particular card system, it is gobbled up by solo gamers. Very, very popular. Although this gives that legacy spin to Aeon's End. So if you're into Legacy, this is exactly the entry point into Aeon's End that you want to check out. You're going to have all kinds of card drafting, cooperative game, deck bag, and pool building, hand management, as I mentioned, legacy game. The card art and everything is beautiful. The actual mechanics of the game are awesome. There's not a lot I can do to crunch this down to a small window of time to explain how great this game really is, but from a solo gamer's perspective, if you are looking for a solo game and you are a new solo gamer, Aeon's End is a fantastic entry point. Moving right along to number 11 in the list from the community is Unbroken, and this game is still currently being delivered. And actually, I have received this particular game, although I haven't gone ahead and done an unboxing or a playthrough on the channel. This one does have a lot of actual issues in terms of the community because not everybody's received this. Plus, there's a lot of asks for additional money to get the shipping funds necessary to get the rest of the games out. Plus, a whole bunch of all kinds of just general customer service issues. But besides all of that jazz, which we'll put to the side for a second, the actual game and the game designer is what people really got behind when this thing was on Kickstarter, and it was a very popular one as the low barrier of entry for its complexity rating and its weight is what drew people in, and the game, even in its final state, when those individuals get that game, if you haven't already, they are ranking this game highly for solo play. I think where this thing is having a lot of trouble is the fact there's a lot of people that haven't received it yet and are still struggling to get it, but the people that have gotten it seem to be pleased, which is why it ended up on this list. And now the moment has begun. We start the top 10 of the Rolling Solo community, and in the 10th position, the community put Aeon's End, The New Age. That's right, it's the second entry on this list already for Aeon's End. Another, it seems like it doesn't matter any entry from Aeon's End at all. Any entry point into Aeon's End is automatically going to land on a solo gamer's list of interest. Now this, in my opinion, is one of the best entry points into Aeon's End at this particular point. If somebody doesn't have any of the boxes, whether it be the original stuff, the War Eternal, the Legacy, whatever, this is the one you want to pick up. This is the closest and best modified and revised version of the originals you want to pick up. Of course, you pick up all the other ones, you can merge all your content together and start using stuff from different sets, but regardless, this is the one, and you guys definitely picked this one to be in the 10th position for good reason, and it's highly recommended. The complexity of this thing is above average, but I can tell you right now, as I said with the other Legacy game for Aeon's End, it's absolutely worth checking out. Number 9 on the list is Street Master's Aftershock. That's right, it's a recent Kickstarter delivery which is landing as we speak inside of 2019, giving more content to Street Master's fans as well as a massive storage solution for all the crazy amount of stuff that comes inside that original game. This has a very strong following, and I've done videos on the channel of an actual full playthrough as well as unboxings and everything else. This is one I highly recommend. This is very modular. That MDS system is fantastic, and again, being able to pair up whoever you want your heroes to go in with against whichever boss and against whichever stage, all that stuff, just constantly adding layers and layers and layers of replayability. But the greatest thing about the game for solo players is the super fast play times and the super fast setup times. Regardless of the fact there is a ton of content, the organization of this thing is amazing. On the list in the 8th position from the Rolling Solo community is Star Wars Outer Rim, and this game right here you can see is highly recommended as a solo game. It has a really good AI system inside of it that will definitely push you as you try to beat it. What I really enjoyed about this one was not only the look and feel of it, but the mechanics were smart. It was a cool design as well. There are a bunch of actual decks in the game, and what I found is the one weakness was that there's one deck that you constantly will go through a little bit more so than the others. So due to the size of the amount of cards in each of the decks, that one deck, essentially whichever one it was, gets kind of run through a little quicker than the rest. And because of that, that's kind of the only negative that I could actually pick out there. But I think in a future expansion, which we can expect, I'm sure, from Fantasy Flight Games, they'll add more cards to it, kind of a la Eldritch Horror, where essentially every deck gets a little extra cards, and then that issue will kind of resolve itself in terms of seeing similar cards coming up most times. But besides that, I really enjoy this experience and expect to continue enjoying it going forward. Number 7 on the list is Cloudspire, coming from Chip Theory Games. This is a behemoth of a game, and the reason that I think solo gamers love this game so much is the fact that the attention to detail for the solo gaming community was extremely high on this one. This was not a tacked-on solo mode by any means. There's a full-on campaign booklet for solo players to work through with all the different factions. There's a fantastic lore book. Like, there's all kinds of content that was really jammed into this thing to make the solo side of it that much more impressive and proof that it wasn't just something being developed on the side. And that's something that I think the solo gamers really respect, plus the love for Too Many Bones. This thing landed and solo gamers gobbled it up, and I'm not surprised in the least that it's inside the top 10. It's a game that I absolutely adore myself. Number 6 belongs to Madera. This is a beast of a game that I covered earlier this year, and this particular game landed in 2019 from the original Kickstarter, plus had its own Kickstarter launching for additional acts. It's massive, and the only way to really show you how big it is to show you some pictures. Now, on the game table, it's actually quite small. It doesn't really take up that much space when being played, but when you actually take a look at all the components inside the box and the scale of this thing, it's ridiculous. The book size right here, the coil-bound book, is huge, and I absolutely definitely recommend that you check this out because it certainly is an experience for sure, but you're going to want to make sure you're into campaign-based games because for sure this one is going to put you into that mode. But I can see exactly why this is on the list. Definitely deserves to be in the top 10 and certainly was a shocker of the year. The 5th position of the list belongs to Wingspan, and actually the family ranking has it at number 1, strategy 26, overall 30. Its weight is about average, but this thing honestly came out of nowhere. Now again, it's a Stonemaier game, so it didn't come completely out of nowhere, but for me, in terms of its success, I was thoroughly surprised, and I'm still actually pretty shocked about it. I haven't actually myself been able to actually play this one yet, but I've heard great things about it. I'm really interested in giving giving it a shot, and hopefully I have the chance to in the near future. Obviously, solo gamers really like this one, and if it's inside the top 10, it's one I certainly need to check out. Mechanisms involve card drafting, dice rolling, drafting, hand management, set collection, and of course, as mentioned, solo solitaire game. So yeah, it revolves around birds, and it's something that I totally wouldn't have thought as a theme would be attractive, at least to me, but now because of the popularity of it and the appreciation of the solo side for it, which seems to be recommended, I need to check this thing out. The fourth position on the list belongs to the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth from Fantasy Flight Games. This is one that we showcased on the channel. We did an unboxing for. There was a lot of attention for this particular game when it first came out, and there still is. From the solo gaming community, as more content is released for this one, it's very much recommended and is a best way to play. Very much like Mansions of Madness, it has an app going for it, which is going to generate the game through. It's going to add replayability. It also takes away some of the fiddliness of what you have to maintain through the board game itself and adds immersion with the app. So it's definitely recommended from me. In terms of Mansions of Madness, if you like dice and you like the horror theme, Mansions is your thing. If you're looking for Lord of the Rings and you're okay with card play instead of dice, that's what Journeys in Middle-earth is all about. Either way, you're going to find what you like here, and the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth is essentially a next step beyond Mansions of Madness. Coming in at number 3 on the list is a personal favorite of mine, but again, remember this list is from you guys. You put Nemesis at number 3. I was actually really excited to see this. This game has taken on a huge following that I don't even think it knew it had originally, and has just, the train just keeps going. Thematically, it's through the roof, and overall, it's extremely high, very highly rated, and in terms of the community, a lot of people love playing this thing solo. Now, the reason this thing's on the list, even though it says 2018, is because all the Wave 2 content has hit, and now people are seeing what is actually entailed in the Nemesis universe in terms of all the different options, plus the core experience, plus it's going to retail in terms of the core box. So a lot of people are starting to get their hands on this, and that is starting to skyrocket the game up because it's very well designed. Very much love this myself. I received the Kickstarter originally. It sat on the shelf for 3 months. Found out later after playing my first game that I was an absolute fool and I should have been playing it earlier because it has literally become one of my favorite games. I've also covered Nemesis in a showcase and full unboxings on the channel. In position number 2 from the ruling solo community, Marvel Champions, the card game from Fantasy Flight Games. There's no surprise here whatsoever. This game is very beloved in the solo community already, and people are chomping at the bit for more content, and it just barely released recently. The game is fast, it's furious, and it's fun, and that's honestly the best way to sum it up. You're not going to take a long time to actually learn it, but you're going to have a hard time winning. And there's a lot going on here for such a small packet of cards that actually is included in the box. Now, I'll go ahead and show you some of the content inside the box, but you know with these living card games, they start small and they grow and they grow and they grow. But if you get hooked into this core experience and you enjoy it, you're going to have a lot of fun, just like Arkham Horror the Living Card Game or Lord of the Rings Living Card Game. Fantasy Flight Games is a really well-designed system with the living card games. They do a fantastic job. So if you like the core experience, you're likely to like what's going to come in the future as well. Highly recommend this one. Did showcases and unboxing for this on the channel. Really enjoyed my time with it, and it seemed like the solo gaming community in general also loves this game. The number 1 solo game from 2019 based on the rolling solo community is Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon. This comes from Awaken Realms. Honestly, when I played this thing as a Kickstarter preview and also went through the development phases with Awaken Realms, this was really fun to be a part of in terms of seeing the transformation of the game from the Kickstarter preview videos I did to later when the combat and diplomacy made its major changes until the final version. I'm really excited to actually receive this in the mail, and I've got videos for this on the channel if you want to check it out, but I haven't received the final version yet, but the people that have received this game seem to be giving it overwhelming praise, which honestly doesn't surprise me in the least because the Kickstarter preview itself was absolutely awesome. So this is likely going to be #1 game of the year from me as well, although I'm going to have to take in consideration a number of other games that I really, really like and see which one comes out on top. But honestly, if this wasn't in the #1 position, I kind of would have been a little worried about the solo gaming community in general. But I can tell you from the voting inside of the community poll, this thing was far and away the #1 position. It wasn't even close. This thing ran away with the #1 position before any other game could even come close to it. So that just goes to show how much it's being enjoyed by the solo community. The pictures here really don't do it full justice as to what is actually included in this game, but there's actually a nice shot of some of the cards, or a pile of the cards. You've got all kinds of artwork there, people breaking their packs out. Of course, they're sleeving them. They've got tons of miniatures, but that's the crazy thing. Not about just the miniatures. It's this card-driven experience, this narrative-driven experience. It's going to allow you to like shape the world and change it as you move through the narrative. It's really kind of a solo gamer's dream. So anyway, long story short, that is what you put as your #1 game for the year. I cannot wait to put together my list for the end of the year. We're going to do a little comparison when I put that list out, and I'll see how closely, or at least you guys will be able to see how closely my list compares with what the community is saying when that drops. But that is going to do it for this particular video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.